Hello and welcome to AGB Art. Today we will be painting an abstract seascape. If you enjoy my video, please press like and subscribe. There's nothing I like more than putting colorful paints on a large canvas. This canvas I picked up at Walmart or Michael's. It's 20 inches by 24. It's pre-primed, so I don't need to put gesso or anything on it first. I'm removing the plastic, and I'll put my blue painter's tape on the back of the frame to keep that area clean. Once I have the painter's tape placed carefully on the back of the frame, I'm going to take my giant push pins and push them into the corners. I'm not sure if I'll do any blowing or any kind of dripping of paint, but I like to have the canvas up off of the plastic just in case anything drips over the sides. I'll use an inexpensive level to make sure the painting is level. Again, just in case I'm going to do any pouring, I want the canvas level. This is a Valspar sample that I picked up from the Miss Tent shelf. I got it for $2.50 and it is the most gorgeous blue. Now I'm going to show you the other colors that I'm going to put on my palette. You'll see later on in the video that I don't actually use all the colors. I just love Amsterdam paint. And of course there's a turquoise that I adore. This is another Valspar sample. You can have these samples made up in any color that you want. I've got this lovely blue. I use this blue in so many of my paintings. And this is another sample from Lowe's that I had made up in a navy. I'm all about repurposing common household items. I'm using styrofoam plates and these cardboard Dixie cups as my palettes. This is a foam brush that I got fairly cheaply. I don't like how wide it is, so I can cut it. I love using sponges. This sponge was a fail at varnishing. This is a super cheap half-inch brush that I'm wiggling back and forth to get all of the loose hairs out of it. Now I'm mixing up my colors and putting them down on the styrofoam plate. I've decided to put a couple of the colors in Dixie cups just because they'll run into each other on the plate. So I'm just trying to keep the colors a little separate. That way it's my choice to mix them. They don't get mixed because of gravity. I always forget to put my gloves on. So here I've got my vinyl gloves out and I put them on. Here I'm going to show you how to decide on the composition. Your horizon line needs to be either below the middle of your canvas or above it, but never straight across. You never want it to have equal amount of sky and equal amount of sea or landscape, whatever you're doing. You also do not want your focus or point of interest in the middle of the canvas. You want it off to the upper left or lower right, or you could put it in upper right, but you don't want it smack dab in the middle. I'm using my foam brush now to play with where I might want my horizon line. The edge of a foam brush is very precise, so I'm dipping it in the darker blue. This was the tube paint, and I'm going to start doing the line. And you'll notice I'm not making the line super straight. A horizon is never super straight. Now, since I already have the blue on my brush, I'm just going to swipe the brush back and forth and add some of the dark blue to the canvas. I've not used any medium. I'm not using water. This is just paint on a dry brush. And I'm just kind of adding a little bit of blue here and there, never using straight lines. And then I'm going to add some up in the sky as well. I like to have both colors on both sections of a painting. Now I'm getting ready to dip into some of that turquoise. Remember, I have the darker turquoise that was the paint can, and then I also had the Amsterdam turquoise. So I'm just sort of adding lines here and there. Now I'm realizing that I really liked some of these white spaces. So I've gone over and gotten a tube of Artist Loft titanium white, and I'm going to squirt some into the cup and use that. I specifically want this white to use it as a highlight. I've sped up the video just a little bit, and now I'm using a piece of the yellow sponge. I like the sponge because it blends the colors pretty well. And I'm just sort of filling in some of those white spaces with the various blues. And now I'm wiping some white onto the sky, and I'm blending to get a nice blue. I'm back to using the foam brush and adding some darker blue in the sea. Acrylic paint dries very quickly, so I like to put a little base on it and then the base stays wet, and then I can play with blending the colors together. I'm really happy with what I have for the sea for now, and I'm going to start working on the sky. I pick up that 1/2-inch bristle brush, which ends up being a mistake. I'm currently putting some white, getting the canvas a little wet so that I can easily blend in some of the light blue paint sample that I showed you. And it's doing a good job blending. But what I'm not realizing right now is it's leaving bristles all over that sky. Here we go with the light blue. And the goal here is to keep the upper part of the canvas darker, and I always keep, it's about 1/4 of an inch from the horizon. I keep that completely blank. That will be the last thing that I put in. So I'm adding some dark blue and blending and using that bristle brush while it's dropping hairs all over my painting. Again, I'll never buy it again. I'll never use that again. At one point, I have to stop the video and pick out the hairs that have been left in the sky. Here you see me with a popsicle stick on the side, trying to encourage those hairs to get out of my painting. Now I've decided that I would like to mix up some super pale blue. I'm going to be working on the horizon line, and I'm mixing some Artist Loft white, titanium white, to the light blue. I'm using my palette knife just so that I keep the edge fairly even, and that didn't work very well. But I'm still working the palette knife, and then I grab a small piece of sponge. This is a leftover piece from where I cut the foam brush, and I'm finding that that's working quite well at spreading a very pale blue right at the horizon. You might wonder why I didn't put a pink or a yellow to sort of make it look like a sunrise. I don't like introducing a brand new color into the painting. I wanted all blues for this one. So now I'm just using the sponge to sort of fill in, do a little bit of blending here and there. I liked this little sponge. It was about the size of a very tiny pencil. And it didn't leave bristles, and it didn't leave marks. this point, I'm almost finished with the painting. I'm stepping back and taking a look at it. And here I am, I'm zooming in so that you can also take a close look at it. I really like the white caps. I like what the palette knife did with the white. It looks super natural. And that sky, look at those clouds. They look great. Okay, I'm in my last step of just doing a few touch-ups here and there. And I'm using that small piece of sponge again. Just adding a little bit of dark, a little bit in places where I felt like there was just too much white, that it didn't look as natural. Just dabbing. The paint is drying pretty quickly, and so when I dab it, I'm almost using the sponge. The texture of the sponge is kind of helping me get a more natural look. Now that the painting is complete, I'm turning it on its side so that I can sponge a little bit of the light blue on the edges. This is very hard to record for you because I'm being very careful to make sure to not get the sponge into the actual painting. I want it to look seamless, but I do want a little bit of the light blue on these edges. And here is the final painting. I'm super pleased with it. You can see I add a little bit of purple right at the horizon just to make it a little darker. I love the white caps in those waves. I have some leftover of that gorgeous turquoise, so I'm taking a cup and just putting it on top. And I also have a lot of leftover paint on my palette. I'm taking a clean styrofoam plate and making a little clamshell just so no bugs get in it. This is plastic from the original wrapping of the canvas. I'm taking my wet foam brush and I'm going to wrap it up super tightly. That will keep the paintbrush soft. You can also use a Ziploc bag for that. Thank you again for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please press like and subscribe to my channel.